Hello, Mandibil here. Welcome to my part 7 of my deconstruction of Stefan Molyneux's book, The Art of the Argument, Civilization's Last Stand. In the last part, there's the first part, some minutes, I'm not quite sure how much time went missing in the start of I've never encountered that before using StreamYard, and that's a little strange to me. It might also be on the YouTube side. This is a StreamYard is a sort of great simple streaming software where you can set up sharing and sharing screens and sharing windows and such. And you can get almost, I think it's 20 hours or something like that for free every month. So it's almost like if you can live with the logo up in up in that corner, it's fine, right? And you can pay some fee, like I don't remember, a fee of $15 or something like that in that price range to get rid of the StreamYard logo, and then let's say you can basically record whatever you want, right? And there are some extra perks that comes with it, right? This is sort of the bare bone version of it, but it's fine for my use, right? I just don't know what happened. The first minutes went missing, and then it just, I have no idea. It might also be on my computer side. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? And that means that that part you're jumping in the middle of something I'm trying to say, so they might not be making that much sense. But one of the things, the way my mind works, right? When I think I have done something and it's sort of finished, I'm on to the next one. I sort of put it in the archive, so to say, and try to dig it out of the archive again. Sometimes a bit like, I had some points, now I've forgotten what those points was, right? Or were. But I'll try to give you a little hint at what I was trying to do with these absolute uncertainty searches, right? Okay, so what I was really interested in was figuring out about these terms, absolute uncertainty. They have the connotations of being in the same realm, of course, right? That's sort of, at least that's how I feel, right? So both I wanted to get an idea of the difference, but I also wanted to get an idea of what they're defined as. What are they? What is he really talking about? Is he just using language to put a label on that makes things seem more certain just because he sticks a label on it, right? It's like if you haven't, in the old days when you could, you can still do that. But in my youth, it was very popular to record tape cassettes with various mixes of tracks, and you can bring it to a party, and so there was some fun about that. Okay, hey, he's got the new mix with his new tracks, and sort of in that. And if let's say I had a tape with the Rolling Stones on it, right? Just putting a label, the Beatles, on it wouldn't change it into the Beatles, right? So it's this kind of mental awareness of what to say. Be careful with how people use labels. It's a kind of, potentially at least, right? A kind of force feeding you an understanding. And if you are prone to Stefan Molyneux's philosophy or philosophy in general, maybe, and do not have maybe sufficient critical skills or doubtful skills, right? Then you might just be sensitive to being manipulated this way, right? So that's why I always, and he has stated that several times in other contexts, that defining things, I actually think he says it in this book, right? Defining things before you go on is great, right? And lo and behold, there's no definition of absolute. There's no definition of certainty, right? And there's no definition in this book, at least, of knowledge or truth or anything like that, right? So what I did was I did a search in the Kindle version, right? And I found out, okay, there's a mention of absolute there and there and there and there and so on, right? Down the pages, expecting that somewhere down the road in the book, some place ahead in the book, I could extract some kind of definition. And to my astonishment, from around page 33 or page 34, if I could speak fluently, absolute, I think, ended in page 34, and certainty ended in page 33. And the rest of the book, like 130 pages more, there's no other mention of absolute or certainty. So the point I had got in the part before I made this, in part, that would be part 5, I think, right? That's the last time we talked about, or the book talked about, absolute and certainty. There's no mention of it later. First, I thought there must be something wrong with the search mechanism in Kindle. Maybe it only searches the part of the book I've read so far, right? Because it was just about the same place. Then I thought, okay, if I search with the argument, then it will tell me, if it stops at page 34, it's very unlikely that there's not going to be mentioned the argument in the rest of the 130 pages. And just as I thought, there was a mention, the search result gave a response all the way through the book, all the way to page 160 or something like that, with the word argument. So absolute and certain stops being mentioned completely from page 34. How does this work? What are you going to spend the rest of your book with? If you're just mentioned the labels absolute and certainty, and just referring to deductive reasoning, and then everything is solved, right? Holy freaking crap, right? So that was my point. I think I had a few more things I said, but I don't remember. Yeah, but that was the basic point, right? So there's not going to be a definition of absolute or certainty, right? So, and I'm not going to drag in some definition from Wikipedia or wherever you might find it, Merriam-Webster or Britannica, to help him settle some kind of definition. I'm not going to do that because that's his job, right? It's not my job. But I want to do a little philosophy concerning certainty, as I sort of promised, right? And it's not really that difficult, my critique. And it's basically just skepticism, right? And this may look a little complicated, but I'm going to explain that. It could be made more simple maybe than I have done. But sometimes my presentations has an extra layer to help me present what I'm going to say, right? So you have to bear with me, and I hope I'll get through it. I'll take a sip of my coffee. Okay, let's go. Now, when you think of it, your experience as a whole, you are always in the now when you experience, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense that you have experience of yesterday, because then what would yesterday be, right? What would that be if it's not now? If it's not now, you can't experience it. But the point is, those things we call yesterday and refer to some kind of experience, they are memories, not experiences. Now, I'm classifying, I'm talking about the whole experience. Maybe I should say consciousness or something like that. These terms are not that well defined in philosophy and that's a big problem, really. So if I'm screwing up the terms with this metaphysics, bear with me, please, and ask questions in the comments, please. I'll try to clarify, right? But if we take that part of the experience that is yesterday and the day before and day -3 and day -4, they're all memories, right? They are not experiences. And my point is that it makes no sense to have a classification of knowledge as empiricism or empirical, which means you have to have sense data. That means it must be in the now, right? And then go and say, well, because I had the same kind of experience yesterday, that is always not also knowledge. That would be violating the basic axiom of empirical, right? Which means sense observation, sense data, sensory input, right? Whatever term you want to put on it, right? And these terms must be clarified really well in a philosophical book, in my opinion, right? So in basic, this table I've made here all that which is yellow is purely memory, right? It's purely memory. It's categorized, and there's sort of I had an experience of this day -2, and on day -5, and day -7, and day -10. That might be the days you used your car, for instance, right? So let's say that it's your car that you knew about, but I have a car, right? I'm sitting here in my living room at the moment, and I used my car on 2 days ago, 5 days ago, 7 days ago, 10 days ago. Does that mean that I know I have a car? Not really, because I don't have sensory input of my car. And this is the big hurdle that it's the urge to feel certain or sure about something, right? This kind of nagging doubt or skepticism is something that rattles with your everyday sense of course my car is out in the carport, right? What do you call it? It's called a carport in Denmark, right? Of course it's out there, right? But that's not a good argument, right? Because what are you basing it on, right? You're sitting here, you have no sense data of your car. Then you don't know you have a car, right? But if you ask me whether or not I'm going to take the chance that there's a car out there, I'm going to say I'm absolutely going to take the chance, right? But that is not the same as saying I know I have the car, because I can't know, because that's the axiom I'm working from. That's empiricism, empirical data, right? So everything that is in the past, the words or the things I just mentioned before, they're in the past now, right? And this is in the past. And this is in the past. And this is in the past now, right? Not as I say it, but as soon as I said it, it's in the past. If I'm going to say donkey, it's in the past now. I made the sound donkey, right? Let's take this, the tape Bob. I'll call this tape Bob, right? You experience Bob now. Let's say you're sitting in front of me. We're pretending, right? Okay. You are experiencing, you know Bob now, this tape, right? I'm calling it Bob. But you could say it's a roll-up tape. You're experiencing roll-up tape. You are knowing roll-up tape. Okay. Do I have tape? How do you know? You're not having sense data, right? I know this is a little screen and so on, right? So it's about figuring out where is the delineation, and you have to stick with it, right? You can't go screwing around with but then I've seen it so many times, it must be there, so I know it. And this sort of gray area kind of epistemology, actually, in my opinion, is why there's so much trouble figuring out what knowledge is, because people want everything that they want to know, or that they know or consider knowledge, to be knowledge, even if it's not basically, they're not basically able to do that, right? So when you can say what I'm doing when I'm inducing something, I'm making an induction about something, then I'm saying I have inducted into my wisdom or into my memory, let's say, my car, right? I have inducted that. Otherwise, I wouldn't consider going out and try to ride in a car if I didn't have induced the idea of my car. But that induction is a memory of some kind. I'm just calling it memory. You might call it something else, right? But that doesn't mean I know it. I have to go out and, have visual identification, at least, of my car to know that I have this car, right? So that I knew I had a car 1,000 times, maybe some hundreds of times, maybe even thousands of times, right? Doesn't mean I know I have a car, right? I mean, it's basic, and I think this is where the big problem of epistemology is, or knowledge. This has to be, knowledge is the highest pinnacle of insight you can have, or the deepest insight you can have into, let's say, reality, right? That's the conceptual, the cognition of objects, like this roll of tape, right? So what I'm trying to say is here with this example, we are in the now over here to the right, and there's a line with knowledge, there's a line with an object and an example of an object, right? But let's say that 10 days ago, right, I knew about the X, right? On day 9, on day 8 before now, I didn't have empirical data, and so I didn't have knowledge of it. So I have a question mark. And then 7 days prior, I knew again X, right? And then 5 days before, I knew X, and then I knew X, right? At what point does this object, I mean, is the object certain or is the knowledge certain, right? That's another question I just figure out. You have to settle. Is it the knowledge of it, your understanding of it, the knowledge identification in your mind, or is it the object that is certain? Because what would that mean, right? There's actually a difference there, I would say, right? But let's just stick to, there's one kind of certain, if we would say there's certainty. At what point in this long chain, this is just an example, right? If it's your car, this would be like maybe 500 days or 1,000 days or something like that. If I'm the kind of guy who ride my car into oblivion, right? At what point would you be able to say, okay, I have known this so many times, now I'm certain? Well, there is no jump, right? Because every time you are not knowing, you're going back to having no knowledge at all. You have to accept that axiom, especially if you have empirical definition of knowledge. So if you don't have the sense data, you don't know it, right? So every time you don't know it, you're going back to not knowing anything about it, right? Having memories of it, fine. That's fine. But that's all induction, right? That's not knowledge. Because induction is based on knowledge. So induction can't be knowledge, right? That would be some kind of circular argument, right? So at what point do you upgrade to certain, right? You could say that if that now I know my car, and I could say I have done this 2,000 times, now I am certain I have a car, right? But what about 1,500 times or 2 times or one? The first time I see my car, I say, I'm certain it's my car. It's a matter of degree, right? And the point of this is to illustrate that knowledge is either or. Either you have knowledge or you don't, right? So a delivery of an upgrade of knowledge cannot possibly be based on a matter of degree, right? Which is weaker than knowledge. A matter of degree is weaker than knowledge, right? If I say that's a green lawn, you would say, oh, is it dark green? Is it grass green? It's a apple green or whatever, right? So it can't be knowledge. The color, the sense data itself, the qualia, cannot be knowledge. It has to be the object that is knowledge, because either there's a lawn or there isn't a lawn, right? No matter what the qualia is. So therefore it becomes binary. It becomes either or. Either there's knowledge or there isn't knowledge. And if knowledge and empirical approach is what you do to get knowledge, there's no way to get to certainty, right? Because knowledge is better than anything else than knowledge. Knowledge is the deepest insight, right? You can't say that you have empirical sense field, let's say, and when you look at the same or experience the same object any arbitrary number of times, then it becomes upgraded to something, right? This is rather willful, what's it called? Wishful thinking. You want to be able to kick other people in the face and convince them or change their mind. And you can't do that if you're not certain, right? So he's just going to force feed you some kind of sophist certainty until you bow down, right? So it's a sophist trick. And if you believe in this kind of certainty, okay, then he has convinced you that you're also certain, and you can go around telling people what to do and what not to do. And this kind of certainty is just some label that is necessary to avoid any subjective approach, which is, well, I think this is the case, right? And because of the problem of other minds, that you can't experience other people's minds or read what they're experiencing, you can't know whether or not they have that experience that you have, right? So you can never know when people are lying. So he has to reach certainties to say, okay, I don't need your opinion, right? I don't need your sophistry, your subjectivism or relativism or what it is, because I can figure it all out on my own, right? And if you don't apply, you're an idiot and I can shoot you, right? Okay. Another example could be the Twin Towers, those who were kicked down on 9/11. Then let's say maybe I should have written 8/11 instead of 9/11 over here at day -2, right? You on day 10 before now, you were this is sort of a fictive example, right? You knew the Twin Towers, and 7 days ago you knew Twin Towers. 5 days ago you knew the Twin Towers. And very early in the morning of 9/11, you knew the Twin Towers, and you went on vacation. And 2 days later, somebody asks you, yeah, I saw the Twin Towers. And the guy said, well, no, I don't think you're right. There's no Twin Towers. You would say, yes, there is. I'm certain. I've seen it 4 times, right? He would say, no, I don't think they're there anymore. Yes, I'm certain they're there, right? Okay. So can you see the example? It may not be the best example in the world, but it sort of highlights in a simple way what I'm trying to say. Certainty is a pipe dream. It's a sort of an artificial attempt at avoiding subjective understanding of philosophy or subjective approach to philosophy. That you're the one having the philosophy. You're the only one who knows what you know, right? You can't tell anybody else what you know. You want to have that certainty because that means that you can tell other people what they should know, right? It's fucking dangerous, right? This white line here, all with certainty, that's where things go wrong, right? Because there's a lack of respect for the individual approach, even if people are stupid. If I'm standing next to one, I'm pointing to my car, and the guy next to me says, there's no car. Well, okay, fine. Then we're not friends anymore, right? Because get out of my face. I have to sort of conclude that he's crazy. But I can't tell him he doesn't know that, or he's correct and say it's a false proposition. I can't do that, but I can avoid him, right? If I want to. At least I can try. So that's my whole point about certainty. So I think I will keep this as a small sort of pause in the series of deconstructions, and keep the next part of the book to the next chapter. So see you then. Bye-bye.